Hello everyone, I'm Jonathan Alfonso and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I want to cover the housing crisis. Look at these headlines. Look at this headline. Look at these YouTube videos that people are posting. Everybody can't stop saying the word crisis. Is there really a crisis? What's going on? In today's video, I'm going to show you, I don't think the crisis is as bad as everybody's saying. I'm going to explain to you what's really going on in the market, and I'm going to explain to you what's causing it, and I'm going to explain to you how you can more effectively navigate today's housing market. So let's jump right into it. I'm Jonathan Alfonso, and if this is your first time on my channel, I am a real estate broker and attorney in Miami, Florida, and I cover all things real estate related. So before I jump into what's going on with the housing crisis, let me just tell you a quick story which I think is going to encompass what is actually going on in the market today, and it's going to make more sense. Back in 2020, when all this craziness started, I started showing up at Walmart's trying to buy a Nintendo Switch because I found out you couldn't get them and because there was a craze for them. I had nothing to do, right? I was in lockdown. We were all figuring this out. Forget that I had two companies and we were doing everything. I told myself, maybe if I played a little Super Mario Brothers and some Super Mario Kart, I'd feel better. After like about 45 days, I finally found one, bought it, and I've played it 5 hours ever since. And my point is, while I think buying a home is a lot more complicated than buying a Nintendo Switch, I think a lot of the same thing is happening because what I really think is causing all of this housing crisis talk, right? It's just one big case of what millennials like to call FOMO, fear of missing out. And I think a lot of people are out there and there's a lot of noise and there's a lot going on. But when you dig into the data, you start to realize there's really not a crisis out there. I mean, is there a lot of competition? Yes. But to call it a crisis is a lot. So let's jump into the data like we always like to do on this channel, and then we can kind of start to sift through the issues. Now, the first data set I want to go through is how many homes were actually sold in 2021, all right? And if you look at this data from realtor.com, and I'm going to put up this slide, right? And this slide shows there was 6.12 million homes sold in 2021. Now, when you compare that with the year before we sold 5.64 million homes. That means we almost sold 500,000 more homes in 2021 compared to 2020. Now, I know what some people will like to say when they like to manipulate data. Well, 2020, that's when everything happened. Okay, so let's look at 2019. It was 5.34. Now, I'm going to put up another chart, which comes from this other company because I think it more accurately shows. And as you can see, going back over the last 10 years, we have never sold more than 5.5 million homes since 2007 when everything crashed. So as you can see now, if you go back to before that, obviously we had record-breaking years. But what you could see is in today's market where we have totally different variables, we actually sold 500,000 more homes and we actually sold almost 1 million more homes than 2019, which was before everything started. So if there was a crisis and if there was no homes and there was nothing going on, then why are we selling so many homes? And this is the thing that's going on, which nobody wants to talk about, is we actually have homes being sold. They're just selling very quickly. So what is really happening is all the variables have changed, right? We all got used to a system where a home would come on the market, you could go, you could see it, you could schedule a follow-up showing, all right, because there wasn't as much competition for the homes. But now the homes are coming on the market and they're selling faster. As you can see, the days on market data, right? Look at the days on market compared to previous years, how much quicker we're selling these homes. So they're just not staying on the market for long, but we have plenty of homes to sell. We actually sold 500,000 more. So it seems to me like what is actually going on here. So let's dig a little bit deeper and see, for those of you that are watching from the Miami market, let's look at the Miami numbers. The first chart I want to put up is condo sales in Miami-Dade County, which is this chart right here. And in 2021, we sold 23,689 compared to 13,000. That means there was 10,000 more units sold compared to 2020. And if you look at this chart, you can see that the number hovered around similar numbers for 2019, 18, 17, 16, right? It was usually a little under 15,000, and it was basically in that 13.5 range, all right? Which means we sold 10,000 more units, which means we're actually moving inventory very quickly. Now, let's look at the data for the single-family home market. Now, as you can see in this chart that I'm putting up right here, all right, for the single-family home market, we had 15,705 sales compared with 13,250 in 2020. And as you can see in 2019, it was about the same number, 18, 17, 16. We hovered a little under 14,000. So what does this all mean, right? We obviously sold approximately almost 2,500 more homes in 2021 than we did in years prior. So once again, just confirming what we're seeing at the national level, which is that we have a velocity issue, right? That means that homes are coming on the market and they're being snatched up very quick. But compared to years prior, we still have the same amount of inventory coming on. So for us to start calling this a crisis, I think is overblown. And I think what the real issue here is what I'm going to get into right now, which boils down to two main facets. Now, the first thing that is causing all of this commotion, and one of the big issues was the millennial home buyers. And if you go back to articles from like 2014, 2015, you would have seen headlines like this, right? And it was a recurring topic where, millennial home buyers were not entering the market and they were kind of deferring home ownership. So we had kind of this pent up demand, all right, from all these individuals who were basically renting and were deciding to not enter home ownership for various reasons. And I know there's a lot of affordability and down payment issues, which factors into this, and just broader overall economics of how much they were making, which I understand. But let's talk about this strictly from a numbers perspective. A lot of them were putting it off or they weren't buying a home. And I think what this has created is a two-part problem. Number one, all of these individuals that were renting, when all of this started happening and you started to have everything once we opened up back again in 2021, where everybody rushed to go buy a home because they wanted to kind of solidify their home situation, is all that pent-up demand meant all these people were showing up at open houses and showing up to look at houses. And the second part of it is, I think there's also a huge pool of buyers that were renting. They weren't really thinking about buying right now, right? It's not that they were putting it off. It's just like they really hadn't thought about it, but they start to see all of this craziness happen where, they see all their friends going to buy a home and their friends are saying, oh my God, I can't buy a home. And now they're saying, wait a second, maybe I should buy a home. So they start going out and they start looking for homes. So we're actually pulling up demand, right? Where people that were maybe going to buy 3-4 years from now are saying, well, let me buy today because I don't know if I'm going to be. So not only did you have all these millennial buyers that were holding off home ownership, now you started to have buyers who were maybe thinking I'll buy 4 or 5 years from now, or they really weren't in the market. They start to see everyone else go and try to buy a home. They see everybody showing up and these, all this talk about a crisis, and we start pulling up demand because now, like millennials like to say, FOMO, they did not want to miss out on this housing market boom, all right? And they decide, well, I'm going to try and buy a home today. So they start showing up at open houses and they start showing up to look at houses. So you have all of this now showing up whenever a house is listed, where you have these lines of people. The reason I bring this up is we are on the listing side all the time. And when we come to a listing, I will tell you that absolutely we try to leverage all these people that are showing up because a lot of them are not prepared to buy, and it could be for a myriad of reasons, but a lot of times is they're just not buying for the right reasons or they haven't set themselves up. But if you're a listing agent, we're going to leverage that because if there's a long line outside, there is one person in there who really wants the house, and that person looks around and sees the line and they say, well, maybe I should do something crazy to get this house. And that's the important thing to keep in mind, because I do that when I'm on behalf of the buyers. Is we look at the line, but I know 80% of those people are not real. I see it all the time. They're showing up. You can tell by the way they walk out of the house. You can tell by the comments they make. I see it in my DMs of people that are messaging me. Oh, well, I've been looking for a year. The reality is, look at the velocity and look at how fast homes are trading. If you haven't bought a home in the last 18 months, the problem is not the market. I hate to say this to you, but your strategy is the problem. You haven't come up with the right strategy, or you don't have the right dynamics. These buyers keep showing up at open houses that they really don't have a shot at getting the house, but FOMO, they're showing up there. The other day we had one of our listings. We had a buyer that they made an offer. They showed up to the open house. That was the next day, and they were walking the house, they were measuring, and I had reviewed their offer. You can clearly tell they had not met with a professional, because their financials really did not make sense. They really could not even go over appraisal, even though they had, claimed that they were going over appraisal. And it wasn't a competitive offer. They really needed to be looking at a completely different price point. But I could tell they were with a professional that really hadn't guided them. And it's like, well, listen, if you guys haven't come up with the right strategy, I don't know what to tell you. They keep coming back and they're saying the market is so crazy. But the reality is, they're not understanding the current market dynamics, and they're not executing an effective strategy. And what does this lead to? this leads to a lot of chatter where they go back and they say, oh, people are crazy. Oh, there's these crazy cash buyers. But the reality is, for every house, and as listing agents, we know it, there's probably 2 to 3 real buyers. And even though we're getting 20, 30 offers, and even though we're putting all that marketing out there, we know at the end of the day, 80% of those offers are no good. They're not going to be competitive in today's market, but we're going to leverage them to make sure that our seller gets top dollar. And that's the thing is, if you're a buyer's agent and you're not understanding the dynamic on the other side, that's what leads to all this, oh my God, there's a crisis talk, and oh my God, there's a crisis, and look at all these people. The reality is, it's like me showing up at a Miami Heat practice, and because I love to play basketball, saying, all right, I'm going to take Jimmy Butler on one-on-one. I don't belong in that game. And some of the buyers do not belong in certain price points that they're looking at, and they need to actually readjust or look at things differently, but they're not doing it. And they're saying, you know what? I'm going to take Jimmy Butler on one-on-one. And that's a difficult task because I know I'm going to lose to Jimmy Butler. Before we go any further, if I could please just ask you to hit that subscribe button down below. And if you can give us a like, it really helps with the YouTube algorithm and helps get our message out there. And I really appreciate it. Thank you all so much for your support. The second part of the problem is the realtors themselves, right? There's a reason why 87% of realtors don't last, past 5 years. I mean, it's a statistic and it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Unfortunately, real estate is one of those things, and especially during the pandemic where everybody decided to get their real estate license. And as you can see by this data, there's now 1.5 million realtors. We have significantly added the number of realtors. In fact, the lowest I think we got was after the 2007 crisis. It went down to a little under 1 million realtors. And now we have 1.5 million, which is, we only basically have like 1 million listings on the market, which means we have way more realtors than we do listings, yet they're all out there trying to represent people, trying to help buyers, and they're only adding to all this talk because what are they doing? They're all frustrated. They don't know how to navigate. They're not experienced enough. Everybody in this business knows that the top 10% of realtors basically control 80% of the business, right? So you have this other 90% contingent that they're out there and they're on social media and they're doing all these negative Instagram videos and all these things where they're like, oh my God, it's so hard. And these reels, which I really find offensive because they make it seem to buyers like it can't be done, but it's really a reflection on the realtors. I'm sorry, but I have to say this. All right. All these realtors out there, you're not doing any service by making it seem all the time that buyers can't do it when it's really a reflection on the fact that you can't do it. Look at the production of top producing agents. In order to prepare for this video, I actually pulled up the production from an agent that's very competitive in my market. He's not on my team, right? Here's their production from. Look how much more this agent did in 2021 than 2020. And I went even further. I pulled up the production of one of the top producing teams in our area, right? I've only been in the business for 2 years operating the brokerage, right? So I decided, let me look up one of the top producing teams that's been in a while. Look at their 2021 production. Look how much more they did. You know why this is? Because the realtors and the teams that were set up, all right, that have infrastructures like myself and other top producing teams, they're built, all right, to navigate this market, to get deals done. They understand how to do this. And then you have this other 90% contingent, which is basically all the noise in the market. And they're doing reels like, they want me to send an offer with an appraisal contingency. I'm not going to do it. The reality is you can get that accepted. You just don't know how to communicate it. What ends up happening is these are the same people then that they talk to buyers, and especially if they're talking to buyers, they start telling buyers, oh, well, it's too crazy. You don't want to go out there. You don't want to be, purchasing like you. I would wait a year if I were you, because they haven't done any research. They haven't actually sat down with that buyer and done a plan, tried to figure out what the buyer's needs are, because as you can see from the velocity, all right, and we're getting buyers under contract, it's just a matter of sitting down with the buyer, coming up with scenarios, looking at their market, adjusting their, criteria for what they want to do, and coming up with a game plan on how to execute. And if you do all of that, all the top producing teams are getting buyers under contracts within 3 months. The reality is most of these people that are running around doing all these reels, that's all the noise that if you are out there and you're a buyer, you're seeing and you're saying, oh man, I'll never compete. And then it leads to all this crisis talk when at the end of the day, we sold 500,000 more homes as a country than we did the year before. And that is the point of this video, folks, is I want you to understand that a lot of this is noise, and I think you absolutely can buy a home. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and deny that, there's not in certain areas, certain people are going through affordability issues. We're suffering inflation. But the reality is we 5x the money supply in this country. The prices of everything went up. But for a lot of people out there, you still have the opportunity to buy if you sit down and execute the right game plan. And even though at the time that I'm making this video, I fully understand that the amount of new listings that hit in January 2022 are 326,000, which was down 9% from the year before. If you look at this graph, look how inventory starts to shoot up throughout the year. This year in particular, with rates rising slowly over the year, with everything that's going on with, the geopolitical issues with obviously Russia and Ukraine and all of that, all right, you're going to see inventory tick up throughout the year. And I definitely think that a lot of you have the opportunity to buy, and there's going to be plenty of properties hitting the market. You definitely can buy a home this year, and please don't get discouraged. All right. So if you've been out there and you've been trying to buy a home, or you've been in this market, please give me your thoughts below. Give me your thoughts on what I've said in this video. Give me your thoughts on inventory. I look forward to having a conversation with you on the comments, and I'll see you all in the next video.